Commission's regular meeting September 3rd, 2019, and a special meeting September 10th, 2019. Your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Allen, supported by Commissioner Petro. Second and approved the minutes. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Proclamation and presentations and awards, there are none. 4, approval of the agenda.
Approve the agenda as presented.
Moved by
Support.
Commissioner DePietro, supported by Commissioner Adamini. Comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment. If wishing to address the board, please come forward. Please give your name and address, and you may speak.
Dan Rademacher, 152 Anderson Road, Scandia. I was here at the last meeting in regards to the road project off the end of Anderson Road. Since they built this road right around the week of July 23rd. On August 20th, I contacted Commissioner Ordine, the local commissioner, in regards to my issues with this road project. I explained to him what the answer he was going to get from the road commission. It was going to be the same one I got, that they were just extending this road. I came to your commission last week. I spoke with Commissioner DeRocha 2 days after that. He assured me I was going to get some answers. I attempted to go to the road commission meeting last night in Ishpeming. They canceled it, which there was no notice online anywhere. I've been patient with this matter. There appears to be a real problem with the road commission. I don't know if you understand the size of this project that they did. A quarter mile might not seem very much. That is 1,200 feet that goes nowhere. It goes in the middle of a swamp. There are no houses back there. It serves no purpose. If anything, it creates a hazard. People are going to be going back there. There's no way to turn around. They built this road up with crushed limestone, and it's 15 feet wide, and it averages 18 to 24 inches deep. That is over a quarter mile, approximately 1,100 yards of material. I have family that's been in the gravel business for 50 years. It's about $25 a yard. That's $27,500 just in material for this road. Once again, that goes nowhere. In the meantime, they destroyed my property. I don't have any, there was never a seasonal road marker on this. On the other end of the road there is, but there's no access. As far as I know, there was no survey, no engineering, no permits. Not sure about the wetlands issue with the DEQ. No due diligence to where this road is supposed to go. If you go down, I ask you to please come down and look at it. And if you're not as disgusted by it and wondering why would you do this and who approved it? It's a lot of money. I'm guessing this thing was over 40, and possibly over $50,000 between the amount of runs they'd have to make, days of the excavator, bulldozers, hauling the material. I don't know where they got this material from. Everybody I asked about crushed limestone, they don't know where to get it. This project only benefited one person, this Mr. Frey. It gave him access to his property. Me and my neighbor across the road, we didn't want this. We didn't ask for it. There was no reason for it. It sets a interesting precedent. Is the road commission in the business of building roads for private individuals? What is the policy for building roads for private individuals? I'm sure there's lots of people around the county that would be interested in having their roads built up. It was what is the policy? I haven't been responded to. How many other projects like this are going on? when there's no benefit. There was lots of roads in this county, especially if you come down Yelmer Road to get to my place, could definitely lose some care. I don't know who approved this and the funding that went to it. What fund did it go through? When they come for their budgets and they want money for sand and gravel and new equipment, I'm interested. If you're short on funds, why did that happen? I'm not just speaking for myself, even though it directly affects me. I think the people of Marquette County and Scandia Township are interested. I've been advised by our township supervisor, it appears to be on my road, to gate it until I get an answer, if I don't get an answer within 5 days. You devalued my property to assist somebody else for I don't know what reason. Is it incompetence or is it something unscrupulous? I don't know. The question is why? Where does the money come from? Who approved it? And who's looking over these funds?
Just a question I would have, was Scandia Township involved with the road commission in getting this done?
No, absolutely not. Matter of fact, I've spoken directly with Supervisor Art Loren. He is very interested in this project because a year ago they attempted to get the Roses down off of McMaster's Road to extend a road that actually is and designated as a seasonal road extended. Mr. Loren was told that the road commission is not in the business of building roads, and if they did want to do it, they would have to pay for it, and they would have to bring it up to grade A paving standards. This road is not grade A paving, but it sure did cost a lot of money. And these were people that wanted it, and it was a road that was already there and designated.
Did you find any information on it, Joe?
Well, if I may, I don't want to use up your time, but I'd like to respond. First off, the last meeting we talked about, I took down your information. I followed up with a phone call first, and then went to the road commission to meet Jim Iwaniki. He was out, and he's had some, and then the following week, was last week, I had a pre-scheduled health issue, so I wasn't at the board meeting, so I wasn't here to go back on Tuesday. But what I did learn that I didn't know was Commissioner Nordine had already known about this prior to you coming in making those statements, and had already called and talked to the road commission Iwaniki. And from my perspective, we didn't get any of that out until later, so I want to sit down with Iwaniki. And one of my questions were the same as yours: why? I just want to know, why are we rebuilding a road that's maybe on the books, but and then hadn't been surveyed, and did we make a mistake? And that discussion would continue. And then do we have a potential trespass? But what you do need to know is we do not control the road commission specifically, other than appointing individuals on their board. So Jim Iwaniki had assured me that we would be able to sit down and discuss that, and that's when I had called you back, and I said, I'll get the rest of the story.
I called you.
Yes, right. So.
And
I have one question. You said that there was one individual that got access, Mr. Frey, access to what?
well, he bought this property about 2 years ago on a tax sale. Maybe 3 years ago, because I think he hunted it for a couple of years. He's from down by Saginaw. Some people were going back there and hunting their property. Just on the, it was a little bit bigger than a quad trail. What it was, it's just a dirt path. I believe it was an easement from an old logging easement from 1926. Now, he doesn't appear to be interested in this property because it sat there. Now he's interested in selling it. This spring, he sold it to an individual, actually two individuals on a land contract. One person from Alaska, the other one a local person. This person from Alaska was parking his about a 30-foot camper right in the roadway. Sounds like the county, I didn't get involved with this too much, but I know my neighbor did. He contacted DEQ, contacted the county. Eventually, he had to move that trailer, but before that happened, he sent 72 threatening texts to this individual, who ended up putting a restraining order against him, and the state police showed up. This was a Monday. He left his house. He lives across the road from me. He was scared to death. This individual threatened to run him over if he seen him, said he had night vision guns, threatened to kill his animals. They served a restraining order on him. The next day, this individual was gone. As a matter of fact, he pulled out of there with that camper. I watched him pull out. He ripped the awning off his camper as he pulled out. Now, that deal fell through to sell that property. He has just recently either sold it or is renting it to a lady who has put a overgrown shed back there they got it hauled in, and is trying to have a kennel with at least 10 dogs, if not 20. She wants to be a sled dogger, but she plans on living in this shed, is my understanding. He's trying to sell this property. That's his deal. He's selling it, no money down, land contract, just trying to get out of this thing. Serves his purpose. The only other person people that might service would be the logging company. Haven't heard hide nor hair out of them since I've owned the place. I doubt they did it for the logging company. If they did that, that would be an awful precedent for the road commission to set. I come to you, I understand you're not the road commission. I attempted to go to the meeting last night, and it was canceled out of the blue with no notice.
We'll get answers from the road commission, I guess.
I mean, the budget meeting is next Monday, I guess.
Mr. DeRocha and Mr. Nordine are liaisons, but I'll also inquire to get why they did it.
I would invite all of you. You cannot picture this, because when you see it, you're going to go, what is this? I mean, if you don't have the same questions I do, go, why, and how much did that cost? Mr. Loren was just down there on Saturday when I seen him. He goes, how much did this cost? And it literally goes off the end into a swamp. It is not going to go through any time. There are no houses back there.
What's the address?
152 Anderson Road is my address, and I am on the very end of the blacktop, which is you go to DeVoe's Country Store. Yalmer Road goes east from there, and it is 2 miles down, and it dead ends. It goes south, and it dead ends at my house. Well, it doesn't now. It keeps going. But if you drive back there, you best have four-wheel drive. You probably have to back out because there's no turnaround. So,
Sorry, your address in the top of Yalmer, is that what?
yes, it goes south off. It's the first road that goes south off from Yalmer. The next road is Dalton. Dalton goes all the way around. So there's no useful purpose for this road ever to be gone through. And when I talked to the people doing it on the 23rd, I didn't see them complete the project because I was leaving town. I seen it when the excavator was there and they tore the road up. And the supervisor, or whoever was there at that time, said, well, somebody complained, so now we're putting the road in. It's like, okay. I mean, if that's what it takes, they're going to be awfully busy. You know.
You know, we can't answer this tonight, but I have some experience in this area, and before I retired, I had a case in which this elderly farmer who had 120 acres of land up in Ontonagon County, and he called me and he said that these hunters from lower Michigan who hunted on a 40 that was next to him, but a quarter mile away from the road. They were riding their four-wheelers across his property to get in there, and he told them, I don't think you've got the right to do that, but I'll give you permission for hunting season that you can go in and out with a four-wheeler, but only for that time period.
Mm-hmm.
And only on four-wheelers, no four-wheel drive trucks. they said, oh, no, the county's got an easement over this property. And, they told us they're gonna put a road through here. And so I went up and did a title search, find out there was no easement. And so then I went to, the county attorney, and I went to, the road commission. The road commission director engineer was in his first year. He just graduated less than a year prior from Michigan Tech. So he had no history of the background on this. And the lawyer was in her first year of practice. And so I had a conference with them, and I said, look, I've been working on these real estate easement things for 35 years, and you don't have an easement there. Oh, yes, we do, and we're gonna put that road through. And I said, well, you better double check, because you don't. And I said, well, if and when you decide you're gonna put a county road through there, would you promise me to give me some advance notice so I can put the issue before the circuit court and get a determination from the judge as to whether you've got an easement or not? And they both gave me assurances that, yes, we will do that. Well, time goes on. A couple of months later, at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 after 6 in the morning, I get a phone call from this elderly farmer. They just bulldozed down my gate, and they're going right through my apple orchard. And no advance warning, and then they put, the gravel they put down for the surface was, when they were, take the oil change out of the trucks, you know, they just poured it on this pile of gravel, so now there was an oil slime running all through the apple orchard, everything else. Unbelievable. So I believe that sometimes people make mistakes, and they make stupid mistakes, especially when they've been warned. But I also know, having practiced law for 49 years, that there's always two sides to every story.
Absolutely.
And we will look into it.
Just to give you a little, I've done a cursory title search. I had a lady from a title search company do some research. I did some research. They didn't come up with any easement for that road. 2, I've been an investigator for going on 24 years. So I've done work for the state of Michigan in investigative roles and different levels, and the last 15 specifically with a lot of financial things. And you follow the money is where you're going to find, you know, a lot of the answers, as it's not a joke. That is, that the rubber meets the road there. And I totally understand. This is not, if it was an accident, if it was, oh, they put a drain, that's a $500 deal. It's not, accidents happen. Somebody tips the truck over. It ain't, I'm not that petty. This is some serious dollars, and I don't believe that if you look at it, when you go down there and look at it, it's going to go off to the west and then come right back. If you drive down there, you will see marker trees. It's all on my property. It comes back to the center line.
We heard you.
Right, so I got it.
We said we're going to help you.
Okay.
But we have no authority over
Right.
the road commission. But
I understand.
we'll
I thank you for your
investigate
time.
this and meet with the road commission and determine what their side is.
I thank you for your time.
Yeah, you don't have to. go.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I'll only be 3 minutes, I promise. My name is Patrick Egan, live at 107 Lakeshore Boulevard. I want to talk to you about the resolution that you're going to consider this evening about the Enbridge pipeline, because I just saw it today that you're going to be considering this. I want you to understand, I've been involved in this. I'm a former journalist from both Menominee and Sault Ste. Marie daily newspapers for 40 years. I just want to let you know that, this is not a good resolution. This is coming from Enbridge. The first paragraph is going to tell you that they have been doing this, operating safely for a lot of years. There have been 33 spills on Line 5. There was a significant line spill at Rapid River. But what's more important is that you guys are putting yourself at risk if you decide to pass this resolution, because you don't know what's in that pipeline. No one knows what's in that pipeline except the pipeline hazardous material group, federal group. And we tried to find out and have tried to find out what's going through that pipeline. We were told by the Coast Guard when we tried to find out about safety measures that if there is a break, there will be significant, very serious hazardous material that will be released. In a pipeline, if hazardous material is, or I mean, a tunnel, if a hazardous material is released, we don't know what's going on. So I would really strongly ask that you, before you pass it, I would suggest you table it and ask Enbridge for exactly what the data is on what's going through that pipe, so that you know exactly what's going through that pipe. Tabling it doesn't hurt you. If you are going to pass this resolution this evening, I would ask that you add an amendment, and that you add an amendment that supports the concept of eminent domain, because whoever builds this tunnel, or when they build this tunnel, there's going to be eminent domain involved at both ends and possibly in other places. Enbridge is doing this right now on Line 5 at the Bad River. You can see the future, because they are condemning land around the Bad River Indian Reservation. They are condemning private land. They will condemn private land, and if they expand this pipeline, after they get, if they do get the tunnel, they're going to expand the pipeline, and your neighbors and I are going to have pretty significant issues about eminent domain. I own land on Drummond Island. I was just appointed by the governor to the Waterways Commission, so I have a lot of interest in this. I am not speaking from that perspective. I'm only speaking as a private citizen, but I really think you need to understand the risk that you're putting at if you support this pipeline, the tunnel pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment? Any other public comment? Public comment? Moving on here, review of claims and accounts. Total expenditures for the period August 30th through September 12th, 2019, $379,310.96. This does not include the payment to Elder Delta Co-op. Biweekly payroll for the period ending September 7th, $684,419.02. Motion to pay those two bills.
Motion to pay the expenditures as presented.
Motion by Commissioner DeRosa, supported by Commissioner Adamini. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Check number 194188 dated 9/13/2019, $2,748.71, payable to Elder Delta Co-op. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Support. Or motion to approve Elder Delta.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Adamini. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. No public hearings or privileged comment. Informational items like correspondence from Dave Fairbanks, owner of Red Fox Run Golf Course at Sawyer. He was very appreciative of recognition by the board for all he's done out there. He talked about it's owned by the county, and he's put in over $1 million of his own dollars to improve it. And in our last budget session, we put in money to put in a sprinkler system for it, so he was very appreciative of that. And then the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission information, full copy available in the administrator's office. Motion accept for file and accept comment would be in order.
So moved.
Support, but I have comment. I also want to note that in the letter from Mr. Fairbanks, he acknowledged the great help he's received over the years from the course manager, Gino Parlato. And you and I both know Gino, and we know what a good guy he is, and it was nice that he shared the thanks with Gino.
Gene Parlato, been the 12 years the manager, and come up with a lot of the ideas for making improvements, so it's been a big part of what has gone on at Red Fox Golf Course. You're right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Recommended change to personnel policy 111.2, medical leave. Jim or Scott?
Jim, I defer Jim. It's going to.
Commissioners, Chair, you should have a copy of the letter I sent to Scott Erbish, and this is a change to the county's medical leave policy to come into compliance with the state medical leave regulation, and my recommendation was to, I guess, enhance it a little bit, where that the state maximum accrual is 40 hours maximum accrual for part-time employees. This is for people that aren't normally eligible for accruing medical leave, but I'd recommended that we allow up to 52 hours per year. And then there's also a recommendation to allow a maximum accrual maximum of up to a total of 120 hours. And this is more addressed to, we've had a lot of turnover over the years for the part-time employees that work in the jail, corrections officers. And I think this would help to give them an incentive to stay on and work, go into the full-time corrections group, and if they're going into it with a little bit of seed time in a medical leave bank. So the rest of it is that's in the policy is meeting the language of the State Medical Leave Act.
So they'll get credit for 1 hour if they work any number of hours?
Every 35 hours that they work, they get 1 hour.
My only question to Scott or Sue is, assume we have enough money?
Yes, you do, and you don't really have a choice. You're on top of it, so we'll adjust to this.
My question was, civil council has reviewed the proposed language and it complies with the law and all that good stuff?
Yes, as Mr. Kent noted, it's a little bit more generous than the minimum required by the law, but it is compliant with the state requirements.
I'll move to adopt the amended personnel policy 11.2.
Support.
Further comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the 2019 Emergency Management Grant. Teresa?
Good evening. This is just that time of year again where we need to approve and this is for this past 2019 grant year. We're waiting to get the 2020 going, but this is for the 2019. So September 30th is the end of this grant year. So it's just, and the percentages are the same, 35.69% of my wages are covered by the EMPG grant. The rest is covered by the county.
Go to the grant, $28,266, which is 35% of your salary, right?
Yes.
And so I guess I entertain a motion to apply.
I'll make the motion to approve the grant as requested.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Alholm. Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd just like to state
Yeah.
one thing since Teresa's here. I attended a couple of meetings when you were helping out with the relocation of Pine Ridge
Yes.
residents, and I just wanted to compliment you on your hard work and thank you for your hard work along with the other organizations to make that happen. And I understand now they're getting to return home.
Yes, they got the permit for the occupancy. They got that the other day, so now they can start moving back in, and I'm sure they are all very happy that they can go back home.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, may I comment also? Teresa
Mhm.
showed up at Pine Ridge at that fire about the same time the fire trucks did, because all of you had to make sure the residents were being evacuated, and then you had to get all your ducks in a row of where are we going to put them, and that, so it's been a kind of a long 7 weeks for some, but.
Yep, yep. I didn't get over there, I didn't get to the fire. I was started right at the dome.
It's my story.
It's your story, okay. And you're sticking to it.
Yes.
Okay.
But go ahead, tell the rest of the story about what you.
Oh, yeah,
to
we had to,
coordinate.
well, we paged out the Red Cross, made sure that, because we knew we were gonna need a shelter because it was worse than what they had thought. We thought it was only gonna be for the short term, but it ended up there was a lot more damage and a lot more red tape that they had to go through. The insurance companies were the main issues with the roofers and the facility itself. So once that got straightened out, Surf Pro was in right away to help start cleaning up all the water. But they had to wait for a lot of permits for the fire alarms. The elevators had to go through repairs and then be approved and they had to make sure everything was working well. So, yeah, it was long, but we had a lot of help from the Salvation Army was able to feed in the shelter, and they got 3 really good square meals a day. Red Cross did an outstanding job. They had mental health people come up from downstate that worked through the Red Cross. We had my office, and we had we worked with Pine Ridge to get places for these people to go, because that's what we found was there was no place to put these people. They really don't want them in a shelter for too long, because then they'll start to deteriorate, because then they just kind of start thinking, oh, I'm never going to get out of here. So we worked with all counties in the UP to get hotels or other HUD housing available for these people, and then worked with transportation to get them there. Northern Michigan was really instrumental in opening the dome for them, but they also donated a lot of the furniture that they had from the old dorms that they had replaced. Still good furniture to be able to furnish those apartments and those facilities that these residents went to. So it was a community effort, and everybody worked to get those people the assistance that they needed.
But that's what I wanted you to say, what you did say, because as emergency management coordinator, I knew that you were going 24/7 on making sure the residents and everything else was falling into place, so thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, and Pine Ridge staff, Kendra, who works with the clients, they were amazing, and because they knew all the clients and what issues they had and where they could or couldn't go, so, or who they couldn't stay with if they had to room together, because there's 145 rooms, and each person is in a room. There's only a couple apartments that have 2 people in them, so it's like you've got to, most of them had family to go to, but there were still 40 people that didn't. So if we would have had more that had to have housing, it would have been a real problem. But we were able to, a lot of the counties and the rest of the region were very willing to help us with it, so it worked out well.
Yeah, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the Enbridge resolution, a little bit of background on it. This is a resolution put forth by a number of counties in the UP, and we received it from Ogden County, but it's been approved by quite a number of counties in the UP, as well as became a part of the platform of the Michigan Association of Counties, which represents all 83 counties. So I'll read it here. It says, whereas Enbridge Line 5 has been operating safely and reliably in Michigan for more than 65 years, and whereas Enbridge Line 5, a light crude and natural gas liquid pipeline, helps to safely meet Michigan's energy needs by fulfilling more than half of the propane needs of the state, and whereas the product delivered to regional refineries provides jobs and ultimately fuel our lives, and whereas multiple and extensive inspections and safety tests over the last several years have confirmed the integrity of the line and the Straits of Mackinac as fit for service, whereas Enbridge has proposed to invest $500 million to make a safe pipeline safer by placing a tunnel with 1 foot thick concrete walls 100 feet underground and make the chance of a leak in the straits virtually zero, whereas consequences to energy supply, local producers, regional airports and refineries, jobs, local economic, and the pocketbook of Michiganders across the UP and the state are too great for Line 5 to be shut down before the tunnel replacement can be completed, whereas Enbridge has demonstrated a willingness to work with the state to both protect the Great Lakes and ensure the continued safe delivery of energy we all rely on. Now therefore be it resolved, the Marquette County Board of Commissioners extends support of Enbridge proposal tunnel replacement project and urges the state of Michigan to work with Enbridge to complete the tunnel pipeline as quickly as possible, not disrupt Line 5 services before the tunnel can be completed. Motion to consider.
I'd make a motion to consider with some comment.
I'll support.
Motion by Commissioner Grosch, supported by Commissioner DePietro.
We all want clean, safe water. We all want to protect the environment, but we have to be reasonable in our requests, and that's why I'm supporting this. The majority of my district is heavily relied on propane, and we lived through the excessive propane rates 3 years ago at $8, $6 to $8 per gallon. Many seniors in my district had to make choices between eating and keeping the heat on. That's a very difficult place to be in. So we have to be somewhat reasonable when it comes to how we deliver the product and how cost efficient this project can be. You know, and let's not forget this is a federal transportation line of product that supplies the Upper Peninsula. I know there's many components and they want to add the communication lines and power lines to help share the load on this. I'm not sure that they're all going to play along, but that's up for discussion. But as far as supporting a resolution to find a safe way to transport this product, I'm in favor of looking at all options that would make that transportation mechanism environmentally safe. Nothing is going to be completely safe. Whether you eliminate the line, you'd still have to transport the product, whether it's via semi or however the other avenues are. They all have some risk. So if there's a way to minimize the environmental risk and not have absorbent rates put on the individuals that that are going to be the end user, I'll always be supportive of that. So
I also support the tunnel for the reasons expressed by Commissioner DeRocha. I've read the resolution, and I don't know if it generated from MAC or generated from Enbridge, but I do recognize that it was a little bit pro-Enbridge, which the important clause to me is the wherefore clause, or the therefore be it resolved clause, I should say, where they propose the tunnel as a replacement. I find that as a safer avenue. I do not like the last phrase, though, that says, and we would also support not disrupting on Line 5 service before the tunnel can be completed, because I think that's asking for a commitment based on unknown facts and asking you to read into the future. So I would like to see that phrase deleted from the resolution. But regardless, I would support it.
Steve?
And I would move that we add language to it, to the extent that providing Enbridge posts a performance bond for cleanup expenses in the event of a failure prior to the tunnel being completed in the amount of $2 billion.
So that's an amendment to the motion.
I would support that.
Okay. Doesn't have a problem. Sounds like a good idea. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes,
I would also follow up on my comments, would ask to, or move to amend the resolution to remove the final phrase and not disrupt 5 and 5 service before the tunnel can be completed.
I would support that.
motion and a support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Back to the main motion to support the resolution. Any other comments? I guess I would comment on it. I guess, I think Commissioner DeRosa hit on a lot of the high points, but it's something as far as the UP is concerned, our use of propane and limited capacity to bring in these products, it's hard not to support it. I haven't seen any good substitutes. I guess everybody says that there's all kinds of ways you can do all this stuff, but I haven't seen any that made any sense to me. So I guess unless I can see something that won't, we don't have a lot of rich people in a good part of the UP. A lot of people are seniors that have limited incomes all over the UP. So these kinds of costs, excessive costs for heating fuels and propane, it's a big deal in the UP. So I guess we represent the people up there, so I guess we better be thinking about those kinds of things. And I guess if someone can show a better way to do it, I guess we'll all listen and consider it. But as of right now, I don't see a better way of doing it other than trying to make it as safe as possible.
Mr. Chair, yeah, we have been to about 4 different Line 5 or different conferences with Line 5 being at those places. And there was 3 factors out there. There was faction 1 that were against it, faction 2 that supported it, the third faction was on the fence. They didn't know where to go with it. But anyways, it's what we're voting on. We're going to be protecting the 15 counties in the UP, because there's no way tankers could continue to feed this area if that line is shut down. Thank you.
And surprisingly, we know it has a big impact in the UP, but it also has a big impact in Lower Michigan, particularly at all the regional airports for one and other uses. So it's not just the UP, it's had a huge impact in the state. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. No late additions. Public comment? Public comment? Public comment? Commissioner comments? Next week we start our budget workshop. What's the dates for that, Scott?
Currently scheduled for Monday at 1 o'clock in this room, Tuesday at 1 o'clock if you go a second day, and Wednesday at 1 o'clock in room 41 if you go a third day. So start Monday here on
Had a time to look over the budget since we got it, and
Tuesday.
just general comments. It's a very sound budget.
I just got corrected, Chairman.
I believe it's Tuesday, they said.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is what
I was just checking Sue, because this is the last year of doing it, to make sure she get it correct. Totally lying.
It's Tuesday, then at 1 o'clock. Anyway, I looked at it, and it's very well done, the budget, in general terms, but money is continually going down. I guess when you look at the specific ore tax from 2013 till today, $2 million has gone down in Marquette County. You look at the dark store issue, it's been going on for the last 7, 8 years. You're talking about 800 grand that's disappeared from the tax rolls in Marquette County. And then you look at the We Energies plant that is no longer going to be operating here in Marquette. Not only hit the city of Marquette, 1.6 million, but hits us for about $500,000. So right there you got $3+ million less in revenue to the county than we've had in the past. So we've done a good job in managing it and keeping our heads above water, but particularly with the healthcare that we adjusted to 3 years ago that Scott put a lot of work in, and Sue, and the work that we did on the MERS, the healthcare alone, we went from about 75% increase in healthcare costs over about 4 years down to probably less than 10% in the last 3 years. So that's the difference. If it wasn't for that, there would be, I'm afraid, less people working in Marquette County if it wasn't for getting the grip on the healthcare costs. So we thank staff for that. But I think looking at the budget in general terms, it looks very solid for 2020. You did a good job with Sue and Scott and Lisa and Wendy and whoever else worked on it. But we'll have a chance to finer look at it next week. But it looks like a very sound budget and one that enable us to keep doing what we're doing here in Marquette County and not having to make any major cuts in services. So, but the future doesn't look right financially when you have very little increase in property taxes, a percent or 1.5%, you're not bringing in much revenue. So it's just looking at the future, it's going to be tougher and tougher to maintain everything that we do right now. But we've been lucky to have a conservative board and a conservative staff that have watched it all. So thank the commissioners, especially because it's easy to give away money that you don't have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Friday, September 6th, Eagle Mine Manager of External Relations, Matt Johnson, announced Eagle Mine operations is being expanded to 2005. So they found a lot more good material in that mine area, so that's very good news. Saturday, September 14th from 10 to 1, the Honor Credit Union of Marquette in partnership with Goodwill Director Jim Borowski of Marquette County and volunteers accepted e-waste clothing, confidential, no documents, TVs, everything that people that find has a hard time finding places to unload them. A lot of businesses that sell stuff don't want to accept them back after the machine is broke down in your TV. So anyways, they did an excellent job of accepting everything that they knew that would be kept out of the woods, that people are still doing, is putting out there because they don't have any other place to get rid of it. And then a big thank you to from motorists and residents from Marquette Township. I met with Under Sheriff Dan Willey, who assisted me in getting Marquette County Road Commission to remove brush and trees in Marquette Township that had been hindering traffic at stop signs or around curves, and everything was growing so far out and it was becoming a safety and health issue. So anyways, he went out there with me and Marquette Township Clerk Randy Rattari. We showed him the areas where we're getting a lot of complaints. 2 days later, The Marquette County Road Commission was out there pruning the brush and bushes back, so thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other commissioner comments? RSVP dinner is tomorrow at the Holiday Inn. Just a reminder for those, anybody who signed up for it, who's staff comments?
Other than closed session.
Okay. We have a full session for strategy for negotiations, motion to go into closed session would be in order.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call, okay.
Commissioner Elmo? Aye. Commissioner DePietro?
Yes.
Commissioner DeRosa?
Aye.
Commissioner Adamini?
Yes.
President Clerk?
Let's take a 2-minute break here. Board of Commissioners, budget work session order. Excuse Commissioner Nordin's trial today. We have no minutes or anything for the agenda. Public comment, I guess. You can comment when we get to the budget if you want, or whatever.
Good afternoon, Judge Cheryl Hill, but I'm not here in my role as judge. I am here as the chairperson of the Courthouse Security Committee. Commissioners, I'd like to give you a little bit of history as to what's gone on with regard to security in the county. In 1998, the judges then sitting recommended to this board that there be limited access to the county building. 2006, the judges brought it back before the Board of Commissioners and asked that there be limited access to the county building. In 2013, Judges Solka, Mizuki, Gerard, Kangas, and myself stood in front of this board once again and made a third request that we limit access to the building. That didn't happen, still hasn't happened, but in 2013 this board did take some action. You reactivated the Marquette County Courthouse Security Committee. Since that time, I've been on that committee. It was originally chaired by Judge Solka, and then he handed over that job to me when he left. Before he left, though, on September 11, 2014, that committee produced a report and recommendation. It's a 3-ring binder. If you don't have your copies anymore, I can get you more of them. The number 1 recommendation in that report is limit access to the county facilities, to 2 entrances. July 21st, 2016, the committee, in its own meeting again, reaffirmed what it had recommended in 2014, that there be 2 access points to the county building. August 3rd, 2016, the committee came before this board again. Judge Solka was still here. Judge Solka and I both spoke in front of the board, and we again asked to limit access to 2 entrances. That didn't happen, but the board did take some action. But what I'd like to tell you is what the committee has done since that time. Since we've been reactivated, we produced the very large report and recommendations. We have provided to the staff of Marquette County on 2 separate occasions active shooter training. We have created an incident report form that is accessible to all county employees that work in the courthouse complex to report security incidents. So now there is one area where we are collecting information with regard to security risks so that those that are performing security in the county can have access to this, read it, report it, understand what's going on, and then we have taken other actions with regard to no trespass orders for certain individuals that pose a security risk to the county. Also, all county employees have now been issued badges for identification purposes, and those badges also allow them into the 2 doors that have been locked. Cameras have been installed throughout the building, and the Courthouse Security Committee continues to meet on a monthly basis. At its September 19, 2019 meeting, the committee again talked about what can we do to secure this building. The committee, and I will tell you, the committee is composed of any department head in the county who wants to be involved, all the elected officials, and then most department heads send representatives. At the meeting on September 19th, the committee wanted to ask this board to consider something for its budget purposes, because we understand that security is expensive. Nothing comes without a price. Security is one of those things. Whether it's a simple new punch key on a door, whether it's a new key, whether it's getting these door stops that lock from the inside, or just simply buying those extra fire extinguishers that we are supposed to use as weapons as well, it all costs money. We understood that. So the motion was made by the Security Committee, and I'm just going to read the same. It is respectfully recommended by the Marquette County Courthouse Security Committee that the Marquette County Board of Commissioners, in its budget process, direct staff before the 2020 budget to create a budget line item whereby courthouse security monies be placed. It is recommended that the initial budget line item be funded with $25,000, and that if any money is not spent in the calendar year, the monies continue to grow in the following years and not be removed from the courthouse security budget. This motion was made by Linda Talsma, and it was seconded by Charity Mason, and it was passed unanimously by the Courthouse Security Committee. Again, we understand it costs money to secure this building, and it has never been put aside in the county budget. And it just seemed to make sense to us, at least if we have a fund, like we have an enterprise fund, like we have other funds, capital fund, for specific earmarked ideas. As the board decides to move forward with different security measures for the building, there'll already be a small pot of money that hopefully will continue to grow each year. I do have a memo that I will distribute to all of you because it just basically outlines that history, and it gives you that motion language that was passed by the Security Committee. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Weezy, Marquette County Prosecuting Attorney. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, approach, I have a graphic I want to hand out for the board. What I've handed to you is basically a summary of what I've been telling you about all year. The first page shows the felony cases that have been authorized since 2013. And unfortunately, the orange part on the bottom shows the terrible increase in our methamphetamine felony cases. These are felony cases, not felony charges. So each one of these represents a separate case. Page 2 gives you a little different perspective on that with a pie chart. Some people perceive things differently. Just to show you that in 2019, where we're at with the problem we're fighting with methamphetamine in Marquette County. And then the third one shows you felonies authorized with a breakdown in 3 categories of victim cases, methamphetamine cases, and just felony cases in total. And I want to focus a little bit on the yellow part, which I haven't talked to you a lot about in the past. In the middle, those are victim cases. And victim cases are unique in that they take a lot more time, because it requires that we sit down, we meet, we talk, we explore options. It's not just a simple we authorize and make decisions on a case. So there's a lot of time and energy spent on those types of cases. And then the last one is simply a breakdown in victim cases and felony cases, just to give you a visual. So what I wanted to talk to you about is what I was hoping to do. And I do have a memo for the board, and I'll give that to you. Staff essentially recommended no change in the prosecutor's budget for the upcoming year. And in light of what I've discovered from the state, that's probably a good thing. What I'm trying to do is shift the family support unit from the prosecutor's office to the front of the court. And that requires a couple of things. It requires front of the court, circuit court, and DHHS approval. And DHHS has set up a process which takes about 6 to 9 months to have that shifted over. And so then, of course, the question is, what does that cost? What is the revenue to the county? What does it cost the county as far as general fund dollars? And what I did in my memo is I just wanted to outline to you what I've done. And the first thing that I talk about is that I've been able to obtain a federal grant under the Violence Against Women Office of the Department of Justice. And that grant brings in approximately $40,331 a year for a .5 full-time equivalent assistant prosecutor. And then I also broke down what it costs for the family support unit and the impact on the general fund dollars if we switch it over. And according to my calculations, just by looking at the family support attorney position, if you offset that with the federal dollars I'm bringing in under the federal grant, it, according to my calculations, is about $11,000 net to the general fund dollars. However, what also needs to be looked at is when you switch these duties over, what does the state pay for as far as other things? They pay for rents, they also pay for professional services, and they pay for indirect costs. And that totals about $34,760. So the bottom line is, if we were to just stop doing family support work today in the prosecutor's office, we'd probably lose about $34,000 from the state of Michigan. When that transfers over to the front of the court, do they get those dollars? That's a big question mark right now. According to the state and their vendor, MGT, that money, in part, if not all, or some, would go to the front of the court, and that's what we need to figure out over the next 12 months. So I'm not asking for anything additional. My budget proposal actually is looking forward from this year to next year, and it does not increase any positions, it does not reduce any positions, it simply transfers the work from one area to the other. And the bottom line is, I'm asking the board to work with me to support us looking at this transition over the next 12 months, of course with me giving you regular updates, with the hope that next year at this time I will be asking the county board to fund my office at 6.0 full-time equivalent attorneys. Currently we have 5.5. And that 5.5, the 0.5 is funded through the grant that I got from the federal government. And I'm certainly willing, and I will continue to look for other ways to bring in revenue to the office to offset general fund dollars. But as of right now, the status quo is as it is. I will keep the board updated, and I just would ask that the board support, as I believe staff did, the continued exploration of this transition. Unfortunately, you just can't turn it on and turn it off. The state has a very, as you can imagine, bureaucratic process for going through this. And it's probably for good reason, because if we go through this slowly and do our due diligence, it's very likely that this funding we get from the state could simply be transferred over to the front of the court. But we want to make sure that that's in fact the case before we would make such a move. I do have a memo for the, yes, Ms. Ellen?
The half-time position would be doing what?
Right now, my family support attorney does family support establishment, half-time, and then does half-time criminal prosecution. So that half-time would be able to make that position full-time criminal prosecution. And I do have a memo for the board, if I could hand this out. Just explains in more detail what I just said to you. And if you have any questions, I would certainly entertain questions from you. I appreciate your time today, and thank you for hearing me out.
I have another question. If you didn't have a full-time, well, is it the family support person is that person housed in your office now as well?
Correct. And that's where the rents come into play, Commissioner Alholm, in that...
So your space needs would remain the same?
My space needs to remain the same. And so if, say, the front of the court was able to take those duties on, I believe that if they had to create a new workspace for the staff that would shift over, that money for the rents would shift over too. The question is, if they just shifted over to the space and didn't create new space, would the money still transfer? Those are some of the questions we need to find out. MGT, the vendor for the state that handles all this, they're gonna be coming up in October to meet with the front of the court and myself and my staff to talk about how these fiscal impacts could affect general fund dollars or revenue coming into the general fund.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Public comment? Any other public comment? Move on to fiscal year 2020 budget discussion. We had these for last 10 days, so everybody's had a chance to study them, and Scott gave his take. I guess Chair and Board, I'd just like to say overall, it's an excellent budget that's been prepared within our financial means, and I guess the thing that public needs to realize is how much revenue Marquette County's lost here in the last 6-7 years. It's mentioned in the budget from 2013 to now on the specific tax for $2 million less. And we had the power plant down from $400,000 to $500,000 here. In the dark stores, $700,000 to $800,000. So add up that's money that disappeared from what we were budgeting back 5-6 years ago. So staff has done a good job. In particular, the board was involved in the health insurance issue, which went up 75% in about 3 years, and the last 3 years it's gone up less than 10. So Scott put a lot of work into that one, and it's really paid off on our budget. So just a few things. That's what we're dealing with as a board, to try to keep all the people working and to provide the services. But when you get 1.8% increases in your property taxes, or 2%, don't add up when you lose millions. Go ahead, Scott.
In the past, we've, I think, approached this several different ways, and maybe the best way to do it is, when I first started, you had me read the whole memo, but I think lately you just wanted me to highlight components of it, and if the board would like, I can just walk through some of the pages, highlight some of the key things that I think are worth noting, and then we'll do our best to answer any questions that you as a board would have. And I think, as you noted, Chairman, the recommended budget is balanced and responsive to board policy and established priorities. So this recommended 2020 general fund budget is $26,355,630. And I think one of the key things, which is a little bit different than some of the budgets we've had previously, excuse me, is a transfer of $400,000 from the severance tax reserve fund. With this transfer, it reflects about a 2.3% increase from the original 2019 budget. As noted here, the transfer of severance tax reserves is included in the recommended to offset the $450,000 increase from the 2020 to the annual required contribution for Michigan Employee Retirement System defined benefit program. Without this, the use of these funds, among other reductions, there would have to not be a transfer to airport stabilization fund and reduced amount for contingency.
Question, I guess, that if we get cooperation from MERS, it's possible that money won't have to be spent, but it's there if we need it.
That's a good point.
I guess that's something that the board ought to understand. It's there in case we have to pay the extra $450,000, or if not, it won't be spent.
The approval of that, we're not automatically transferring the money. That's a good point, Chairman. If in fact we're fortunate to get some modifications from MERS, what we're looking to do is to try and smooth out the payment. It's going to, based on what they projected, I think over the next several years, we're looking at a 40% increase, which more than exceeds any revenue increases we would anticipate from our tax base. And so they seem willing, based on the meeting we had recently, and Sue's going to be putting together a recommended longer range plan for them for their consideration, and we're hopeful we'll get some movement on that. On top of that, I would say too that, again, these dollars are there in case, if we have to use them, we would draw on them. Even if we don't get movement with MERS, there's still a potential we may not have to draw on all of it, but it's an important cushion going forward for this upcoming season, so that the budget, especially with Ann coming on board, would be very, very tight to work with. And I think with the nuances and changes that we might see in the budget over the course of the year, it's good to have some flexibility for the staff as we go forward. So the ad valorem tax is still relatively flat. I think we've seen our best increase, which is roughly 2.8% increase going into next year. That's better than we've had in the past, so we're happy with that. Again, factors ultimately dictate how much we actually collect from that, but we put in an estimated amount based on that today. With the state, we always try to give you a little bit of a rundown of the issues that are affecting us from the state. Right now, as you're well aware of, the state hasn't finalized their budget. We're not sure what impacts, if any, that will have on us. We're hopeful they'll be able to get something resolved in the next 6 to 7 days. Otherwise, they'll have a shutdown and have some other layoffs. But as we've already...
The House and the Senate agreed to 2.3% increase for revenue sharing. The governor had wanted 3, but it shouldn't go lower than that, you'd hope.
You hope not, and this budget reflects that increase as it's currently sitting. To give you a roundabout number, and this is roughly a little over $30,000 increase from this year's budget going into next year's. As we note on page 2, I'm getting a little bit ahead, about $1.3 million from that fund. So, as noted, we are concerned about where the budget is with the state. We hope that they stick with what we're anticipating here. Tax tribunal, as noted by the chairman, is still a concern. The Menards case is still out there with the city of Escanaba. That's still potentially going to set the standard for how big box and particularly other commercial properties are taxed if in fact they're not successful. If they are successful, that will hopefully stabilize some of the challenges that not only Marquette County and others have seen to their tax base from commercial businesses. I'm going to skip down a little bit here. We still have the concern as with the probate judges note here that 17-year-old in the eyes of the court is still considered an adult. That's not hot on the topic train right now, but it still could be revisited. I think that's still going to come back up, and at some stage we'll see that finalize the decision, maybe moving the 17-year-olds to be juveniles at this point, and 18 being the adult standard going forward. But that will happen, I assume, in time, but I think they're still working through those, and I know Matt continues to be an advocate for counties to make sure that those impacts fiscally aren't as onerous as we fear they could be. The 2019-2020 public defender's budget has been approved by the Michigan Defense Commission. As I noted in the memo, that request that was submitted this year would add, assuming it's approved by the state's budget, 1 additional attorney and 1 additional staff position, which would bring that department up to 4 full-time attorneys and 3 support positions. So the county's budget that's presented to you does include our required contribution. If you recall, I think our contribution was $227,000 or so. Last year, as part of one of the last-minute changes with the Snyder budget, they did change it to now have a multiplier, a percent multiplier added each year, so that there's an increase, a small increase to our contribution annually going forward. So you'll see in here the $229,920 is in the budget, assuming the budget is passed by the state for indigent defense. So far that transition has been going relatively well. There's been some headaches along the way, both from the courts and from the department, but all has been seemingly trying to work through it. And I think Patrick, our new chief public defender, has been very appreciative of the patience by everybody and the support that he's getting internally by the different departments and divisions, including Matt's office, charity, and others, so as well as finance and other helping to work through that. So, as noted earlier here, getting on the revenue sharing, we're putting in $1.3 million for what we anticipate getting. That was based on some state numbers that's received. So, and we always like to note this in the budget, and I haven't had a chance to pull this out, but approximately 75% of the county budget is for services required or mandated by state law or rule, and that includes all of those departments and divisions that also support the mandated program. So a large part of your budget that you put forward really goes to support what are considered mandated programs. The 2020 budget recommendation is estimated that the Airport Stabilization Fund will have adequate funds through 2022. That is assuming you pass today's budget, or that's what's recommended. Because transferred to airport stabilization. Another part that I've noted on towards the bottom of page 2 is that we will not require to have a level 4 equalization director at this point. Really what we base that on is the city's values. If the city of Marquette being the largest municipal reaches a certain threshold, that may then trigger us to be required to have a level 4. At this point, going into 2020, we know for a fact we won't, and we're not anticipating it yet in 2021. It's something that we monitor and may have to go back and have another contract at some stage.
Thanks, Sue, for her work on the airport stabilization done over the years, along with the county board, because we've got 6 more years than we thought.
We've got 10 more. We anticipated that fund running out in 2009, and with efforts from the board and how they do it, getting some money a little bit interjected from the general fund, efficiencies put in at the airport, it's, the dollars that we've received in revenues, it's extended it more than 6 years. So it's been a lot of work.
Thank you.
Revenues, the recommended budget is a starting point. Board discussions and final adoption by the board will allocate the limited resources to county needs. Again, the general fund budget that's being recommended to you today is $26,355,630, an increase of $595,801 over the 2019 budget. Again, we talked about property tax in here, specific or tax revenue, which the chairman noted already, is estimated to be $900,000, a decrease of approximately $475,000. This could go up or down. This is the best estimate that we put together based on information today. Again, I think we're very fortunate to have this funding, but as the chairman pointed out, as noted in 2013, net revenue was $3,069,000. So it's a pretty sizable change from the time that we got it. So we've tackled some of these already. Again, we're talking about state revenues are projected to be flat with a slight increase in revenue sharing, which we noted. Further, again, use of revenue reserves in the 2020 recommended budget limited to interest income generated or funds that have sufficient balances. So let's get down to staffing unless there's some questions about that.
I just want the prosecuting attorney brought up the report, transfer this program over to friend of the court. Is that something that can be done?
We think that, given the challenges that the prosecuting attorney's office has with respect to some of the criminal cases, we think it's worth exploring, and I assume they have some more insight than I, but we think it's worth exploring and looking at. Yes.
We're trying to get a meeting together with the state officials in October, Matt's office, myself, and Andrea, to look at this. I talked to Andrea yesterday, and in order to get it into the budget year, the state budget year, starting October 1, 2020, we need to have a recommendation to them and a request by March, sometime in March of this year. So we have a few months to be looking at this to see what it would cost. We'd bring it back to the board sometime prior to March to make that adjustment going forward.
The idea seems to make sense, so.
I think what prosecutor noted is one of the concerns we had was the shifting on what potential loss of revenue might there be with the rents that the money we generate from the lease component of it. And I think that's part of the bigger unknown at this stage. But otherwise, I think it really makes sense to explore. I think what Matt has shown in his position as the department head, they really try to be creative with ways to make things happen. And I think this is a good thing that we're trying to explore, and Matt's been digging into it pretty thoroughly. So before that, just to note publicly that the Sheriff's Office did request 2 additional road patrol positions and 3 full-time corrections officers. Unfortunately, the budget could not accommodate that, at least as we presented, and so it does not include that in there. We met with the Sheriff's Department on it, and they're well aware of that. So I would want to note that we're trying to gain from departments that I oversee, in particular on page 4, what we're doing with planning. Since I've been in my role as administrator, we've reduced planning by 1.5 positions, assuming this is approved today or going forward. as I note here on page, the top of page 4, was that we've reduced planning by another half position. The way we've been structured, under the system, we've been funding a person to work at Perkins Park to be the park manager. It's been difficult. When we first lost Kim Burgoyes, finding somebody to kind of get that initiative was very scary. We weren't getting a lot of success. The gentleman that we have, Chuck Carver, has been doing it for the last 5 years. He actually comes here from Wyoming every year to do this for us, and it's been great because he's got a lot of park experience, which has been very helpful. But going forward, given the difficulties with the budget, we felt that we would try something different, and we thought that at some point it makes sense to have a full-time position, half-time in essence, out dealing with park issues, and working, and then the other part as a planner. So what we put together and have in place as of today, a creative planner recreation coordinator position, so that by doing so, it's reduced the total dollar output in planning by approximately, give or take a little bit of a half-time position. So again, trying to be creative with staff ideas. We're hopeful that this will work. If not, we'll have to modify it going forward, but we're still pretty confident.
It's not one of our mandated services, and
No.
it's got a pretty good size price tag, so I'm glad to see try to make it more efficient, because it's one of the places, I guess, that push comes to shove, those are the kinds of things you're going to be looking at in the county.
Yeah, and we've been cognizant of that as a staff, and planning has as well, and that's why I think you see that today to try and manage that differently. So again, I think that one of the things that you noted, Chairman, in a couple of years is that making sure that the hours of operation, we've not been made aware of any proposed changes to regular office hours in any departments nor the court. And so, as we noted before, this budget reflects that all offices will continue the hours of operation as they do today. We're not anticipating anything else. We obviously bring that forward. So let's see. For various departments are continuing to monitor needed increases. The soil, water, and sewer departments are recommending an increase. I think it's a 2.7 total for them, and there's some information further in this budget. But I would like to note in advance of getting to that, this board was made aware of, we've had the SAW grant going on for the wastewater treatment plant. We should be, and we also had a study on the water system. So I'm anticipating, based on these reports, probably having to bring a pretty large increase at some point forward in 2020 for those systems. That's what we're anticipating. If you remember, part of this is the state also mandating some new rules with respect to water systems with galvanized lines and lead connections and other things that we are mandated to change out in time. And so these things may also be reflected as part of that. But we have some time to implement that, and we'll be probably bringing another rate change to you in addition to this at some point in 2020. The other one that I think is, worth noting is the codes division. Again, trying to be cognizant of the limited dollars. None of us like to increase fees, but we think it's time, in particular with codes. As noted here, the codes has not traditionally been or historically been self-supporting, and the code official has put together a brief memo for the board's consideration. The recommendation in what he feels, and I concur, and I think Sue also concurs, probably the cleanest way to address some of that revenue deficit is to put an increase on the application fee. And what we're looking at is we're recommending a 2-year increase to that, from $95, which it currently is, to $120 for the year 2020, and to $145 in 2021. And this budget does reflect the first implementation of that increase. As noted in the budget, given it has permit use and others, about $114,000 if you fully implemented it. So cut that in half would be about what you might generate going forward in 2020. The other thing that we're generating actually more revenue, which has been helpful a little bit, is we took on, which was actually more of a cost center for us. Was it 3-4 years ago? We took on, why am I drawing a blank on it? Soil erosion. Thank you. Yeah. So that's also brought in some additional revenue, so we've seen a pretty large swing there. Just what we were spending $25,000 to $40,000 a year on that. Now we're generating $60,000 to $80,000 a year. I think we, picked up quite a bit this year with the Senco project, so there were some things that we do to try to, again, be creative with generating revenue without necessarily expanding staff. The entire year's recommended budget includes $585,000 from the delinquent tax revolving fund. This has pretty been much the standard, and for the 2020 budget, an additional transfer of $100,000 is included to support operations. And then we have highlights from department requests. I discussed law enforcement already.
Question?
Sure.
We're spending $685 out of the tax delinquent revolving fund, right?
That's also, that's what's budgeted. We don't always use that if we don't need to use our contingency dollars. We don't transfer all, but we kind of wait till the end of the year to see what we need to make it whole.
Courts, I've already talked about law enforcement. Courts, as noted in the revenue discussion of state revenue, I haven't said this out loud, but in the memo, revenues are reduced for courts consideration to be given to reduce expenditures in the program receiving state support. Human Services, recommended health department maintenance of effort from the general fund remains at $521,506. I'd like to note that it's the same amount since 1998. Overall, the department budget is $321,948 more than the 2019 budget. The increase is due largely to mental health counselors in adolescent clinics and increased retirement costs. We did receive some grant funding for some of those programs, but it doesn't fully cover some of those increased retirement costs. Total budget for the health department is just shy of $5 million at $4,997. $499,070, I'm not saying it right, I'm going to skip it. So, for those recording, can we skip that one, edit that out, please? So, the 2020 budget includes a recommended transfer of $10,000 from the general fund with $20,000 from Veterans Affairs budget for the Soldier Salary Relief Fund. Veterans Affairs Department milling request will remain at 0.8 mils. The Veterans Affairs Committee requested that the 2020 budget include $14,500 for irregular part-time staff. All other Veterans Affairs budget requests are included in the budget. The 2020 budget includes funding in the amount of $58,000 for MSU extension. Still have not received any requests specifically from them, but
Going back to the Veterans Affairs, it says their budget request included a part-time staff person. Did you fund that?
Yes.
Yep, we do, and they actually have some additional funding that comes through some of the grants that they've received that offset some of their part-time work as well.
Is that a union employee?
No, not the part-time, they're irregular part-time. They have two staff, one is, they have one assistant, Mr. Craig, that's full-time.
PAV transportation that we see advertised on television, is that our local veterans group doing it?
That goes back to the grant that they applied for, yes. What that's paying for is part-time staff to help coordinate those that are doing the driving, but the DAV actually brings on the volunteer drivers and trains them and insures them. So what the grant paid for was getting assistance to help log all the calls and schedule in those internal things. But we don't have part-time staff or others doing the actual driving. The DAV handles that. The funding that you see to pay for the advertising came from that grant as well. Okay, let's see. We can talk about MSU. We have $58,000 for the MSU extension services. This is the same amount for 2020. The current memorandum expires December 31st. I am meeting with the local director next month, so we'll see if there's any, but I feel confident that we're adequately set for going forward in 2020. We also provide an additional office space for them and $32,000 for 4-H support. DHS Social Welfare Board requested $8,000, included $3,000 for travel. Recommended budget was $6,000, with the same as 2019 with general fund appropriation of $3,000 and $3,000 use of equity. Administration, no changes have been made to the department budget for the administrator. Airport operating expenses are, excuse me, I'm going to do better, I hope, at this one, $2,434,500. Operating revenues are $2,159,500. Again, we always strive for self-sufficiency. Now, as noted by Commissioner DeRoches, we'd really like to see it fully self-sufficient. We hear that and recognize those concerns by the board and are well placed, and will continue to do what we can to
Just like to
try to get
comment on
closer.
that, maybe 4 years ago, it was close to 700,000 we had put in, now it's down to 275, so they certainly made a lot of improvements in bringing in money.
It has. We've been fortunate with some of the lease revenue we've generated and some of the little efficiencies, but you're correct. In fact, I think it was back in 2005 or 6 that I think we had an anomaly year that there's about a $900,000 transfer or use of other funds. It didn't come from general fund, but it was that number keeps dropping. But it fluctuates each year depending on tenants and
We
other
were
things.
spending 350 to 450 at the old airport.
That's correct.
So I mean, 275 here.
Especially adjusted for inflation, if you took that into effect, we'd be way ahead. So, Airport Stabilization Fund remains a funding source through 2022. Again, that's based on current balances and assuming that there's not a significant change in the tenant base. Again, separate enterprise budgets for water and sewer. Recommended 2020 budget includes a 2.75% increase to the combined rate for water and sewer. That would bring the combined rate to $18.70 per thousand gallons. All other fees that you'll see in the back for other things that we charge for there remain the same. Aging Services Advisory Committee approved a $1,060,435 budget, and in total funding and for service will increase by 2.5%.
I guess I ask this question every year, but the last 10 years, approximately how much more money have we put back to 4 senior centers?
More than triple the amount we put out for services.
More than tripled since we started funding it, services through the local senior centers. So that's something that you may be asked by people in your community. So that's what you can tell them. The county board tripled their money over the last decade. Because sometimes when new people come in, like city managers, write letters like they're not getting enough money. Well, you've got an answer for them.
Which we had that happen last year. Central Dispatch, again, pretty much the status quo, a little bit of an increase based on some changes, but not significant. Foreclosure fund, the budget includes $25,000 transfer to the land bank. The land bank authority requested the transfer to provide funds for management of properties that will be transferred to the authority. Non-county agencies, this is primarily your economic development fund dollars. Put in $52,000 for economic development. As we typically break that down, we've entered in, again, it's always at the board's pleasure if they would like to see it differently. $32,000 for a contract with the Lake Superior Community Partnership, $5,000 for the county's contractual contribution to the Superior Trade Zone, $5,000 to the LSCP because they actually do our EDC for us on our behalf. And then right now we would like to continue. I think the Brownfield Authority has done some really good work with respect to economic development. We'd like to continue a contribution of $10,000 out of this towards the Brownfield Authority. I'd like to note, as a service organization, our major expense is personnel. 2020 budget assumes a total compensation approach that is sufficient and sustainable based on current county revenues. Compensation for most county employees is set through the collective bargaining process. On a positive note, heading into the 2020 budget, the overall increase to health insurance rate is 1.4%. This was one of the smaller number of the county was one of the smaller number of employers to receive a reduction from the pool average due to its low utilization over the past year. I think as of last year as well, I think only 10 organizations out of roughly almost 100 that they have received a reduction. So I think we've been very fortunate. Obviously that can change. You know, we expect people and encourage them to use their health insurance, but I think either we're really healthy or been blessed with some low utilization. So that can change, but we've been very fortunate.
have an insurance bill like we used to have a few years ago, it was almost 4 million, so you can figure out, when you get a 25% increase versus 1.4%, what it does to the budget.
Yep. And as the other change, and I think some of this goes to the heart of the decisions, and sometimes not easy decisions that the board makes, you also went to the hard caps for employees to have to do, and based on going with the hard caps for this year again, this is another year that employees that take the county health insurance and will see a slight reduction in the amount that they have to pay towards their health insurance. Although it's not huge, it's still a slight reduction. And someday that will probably change too, but at the same time, it's nice to know that some of the decisions you've made, it shows by being on hard caps, if you might recall, it really shows where our costs are going to be as an employer, where if you're going back to percentage requirement, those fluctuate more readily than what we're doing here with the hard caps. The other decision that the board moved to was for the retirees 65 and older, you went to a new RAP plan, and I was looking at that, and we met with our plan advisor the other day. In 2017, the monthly premium was $310, and that was under the Advantage plan that we were paying for those 65 and older. What we're tracking at today, it still shows anything meeting with him is $257.77 per month. So even 2 years later, not taking into account that the Advantage probably would have gone up a little bit as well, you're still paying, in essence, less, assuming that number holds true for the rest of this year. You're still saving money based on what you did in 2017. So again, it shows that some of these decisions in changing programs and trying not to negatively affect the benefits in which the employees receive is still paying dividends on the budget, which is helping balance the budget today.
Staff deserves credit for that. I mean, I guess that's the way you have good county administrators, like they always say, they more than pay for their salary, and take money that they can save in the budget.
Well, these are group efforts, and it also, we bring recommendations to you as a board, and it's ultimately up to the board to make those decisions, and sometimes they're not easy because, there's some of these are a little bit unknown. The move to Amwins, we weren't sure how that would all play out, and so far it's been relatively smooth for the most part, just like the switch to Western Michigan Health Insurance Plan. So we're pretty fortunate that these things have happened to that along the way, plus they continue to provide financial benefits to the county. I think I also want to point on the bottom of page 6 is that based on the state has been always playing with unfunded mandates and the OPEB standards and how much we have to have set aside and percentages and such. And we're always afraid that they're going to mandate something that there might be teeth in it. Right now they don't have any teeth in their programs, but even with the programs when they require reporting of our unfunded percentages and our OPEB issues, based on the last submittal and our auditor's review of it, we continue to be compliant with the standards that the state has set, but we still want to make sure we're monitoring that. Again, that's MAC is also paying attention to that. I continue to meet with our representative and others, and as some of the comments I say is, we don't mandate something that are going to create more challenges for us down the road, and hopefully that won't be the case, and today it's still not. And page 7, top of the page, for 2020, the recommendation includes a transfer of $800,000 from accounts previously had in the trust and agency fund to the OPEB reserve fund. These funds were accumulated from savings recognized during the years the county self-funded both active employee and retiree health care divisions. With this transfer, the balance in OPEB reserve fund will be $4.7 million. Still well below where I think we'd really like to be, but the good thing is it allows us to keep putting some dollars into that, and those funds, as it's currently set up, could also be used to help in a future budget for some of our retiree costs if needed, so that these dollars going into these reserve funds still have value to us for other ways in addition to being a cushion in trying to meet our OPEB obligations. And we talked about airport stabilization a little bit. I did want to note, as I put in the third paragraph on the page, that another good thing is the way the board is structured, how we collect the severance tax dollars. The good thing is Eagle has announced at least being in operation into 2025. We've generated between high $300s to $500,000 annually from those revenues. Obviously would have liked to been receiving more, but we worked hard to, I think, keep what we're getting today. And the commissioner had a meeting going on that. I don't want to get his blood pressure up today, so because it does happen with this one for us. So. But that's a good thing, and those dollars have really helped the county look towards some of these capital costs that have been very expensive that we probably wouldn't have been able to pay for or had to maybe keep setting aside. So it's really helped us in that respect, and it's helping us with this budget going forward, assuming the board is supportive of that. And that's not the way we like to bring it to you, but we think it's a good way of addressing it. And then again, we also want to note that we can't forget that with all of these efforts and good things that we have done, and there are still these considerable challenges, as noted by the chairman in the beginning of the meeting. Lee Energy's plant gets closed. We have lost substantial dollars there on a taxable basis. Iowa Ventilated Line. We'd always like to think that that's going to reopen, but those are the challenges that to see that happen. Airport stabilization funds will at some point be depleted. Tax tribunal challenges will continue, we think, they will regardless, but the big ones we don't know. And just making sure we stay on top of our defined benefit costs and OPEC, which I think the board has continued to show fiscal responsibility and being very conservative in trying to address those. So we have a capital improvement program has been included in the back of your binder. It's $530,800 for that. We have technology fund of $72,000 for computers. We also include as part of this 4 vehicle replacements, 2 vehicles for road patrol, 1 vehicle for building codes division, and 1 for the airport. So, and as noted, there's more details on all of these things in the budget, and we'll do our best to answer questions and concerns the board has. So that's my highlights of that as best I can.
I have a question. From the Court Security Committee, Churchill's presentation, was there a budget request for this, $25,000 for this year, or is that something you're looking for next year?
May I?
Either or, I don't know.
Well, I can
28.5.
What the judge is asking for now is for consideration going into 2020.
Okay, that was not part of an earlier request from the request?
Not an official one from the committee, no. But we'd take it.
Is it?
Absolutely. It would start building up that fund.
Isn't there 28.5
Point out
appropriated?
some of these changes to securities that have been taking place, they did come to the board and they were endorsed or approved by the board. Yes, that the committee had suggested to us.
Yes.
Karen, I think there's 28.5 appropriated for that, for 2020.
For courthouse security?
Yes, in the budget.
Not that I was aware of.
You're talking about in the capital?
Yes.
There's some, yeah.
Hang on. 28.5 district court office security was plugged into the capital expense for 2020, Judge.
As I understand it, that came from the request from the district court itself. Up until now, there's been no general pool of money that we can look at for overall security. Each of us in the courts and the departments like the clerk's office has to go in their own budget to try and figure out, can I get together a few dollars to put some new glass in? That's actually what happened in the clerk's office. And you get on there, she did a really nice job of being able to put some bulletproof glass there, but she had to dig around in her own budget for it, I believe.
And that's all I had to.
Yeah. So we're looking for the starting of a fund for those expensive things for the whole building.
Can we do that? Can we establish a fund with $0 for the time being until we can find some money to put in it? I mean, can you have a zero fund? Because we don't
Well,
have,
you can have a zero
we
fund,
don't
but
have any money going
you
into
as a
that.
board can ask us to see if we can find $25,000.
I'm not asking that, I'm just
We
saying,
can have a
kind of,
plan.
it would be a mental reminder, this is something that we should consider at budget time.
Yeah,
The committee
and-
can bring it to.
Yeah, yes, you could have a zero fund budget and as a placeholder going forward. And I think there's, to the judge's point, I think what she'd like is having a fund for the committee that would be able, that they know they have some dollars. But I think what we've done is if they come forward with something, there are some other ways that we have dollars available that the committee could potentially tap into for projects. that are sitting there right now, but it's not specific to that.
So you're looking for a line item where you as a committee can go into at your discretion and use in security
Well,
areas?
but sort of. I mean, our committee doesn't have any power to do anything here, but if we brought something to the Board of Commissioners, an example is fire extinguishers are very good to have around. Say that we priced out what it would cost every department to have a new fire extinguisher. We could come to the board and say, you know, we might not have it in our own department budgets, but we know there's this pot of cash. Would you allow us to do that, or give, you know, the administrator the ability to let the committee do that? It's just, we were always running into, and it's a legitimate concern of administration when the committee comes up with an idea, there's always a cost. And
It's usually big, as you
it's
pointed out.
usually very big, right. And so we're just trying to come up creatively with, well, what can we do so that when there is a good idea, that we can say to the administrator, you know, we'll look for the grant funds too, but those are often matching funds. So we can say, well, here's this pot of cash that maybe we can use 10 grand out of this and 10 grand from the grant and buy the door stocks or the door locks or the rope, or, you know, whatever it is that would be necessary to help secure the building.
Thank you.
Would you annex heating system in this year's budget?
It's in this year's budget, we'll carry that over, because it won't be, you know, we've got the engineering going on right now. So that money is in capital, that will continue. It's not gonna be disappeared, so.
We'll get that done.
Yeah, and as noted, we hope there won't be any, risk control stuff. Yeah, we hope there's no breakdowns of substance. In risk control, Sue just pointed out, which is another place that we had money before, it still has $30,000 into it right now, so there is $30,000 under risk control today.
Well, I didn't know that. I got a way to spend it.
So,
Thank you.
Were there any important issues that weren't funded under capital outlay?
when we go through as a committee, as we noted that, I mentioned to Vice Chair DeRocher that Committee 5 was not, but when we meet as a committee, a lot of these, we have a team that meets, it's comprised of myself, Sue, I believe Debbie Kimmis is there, Aaron Carlstrom, Manager of Planning, and IT, and IT there. So a lot of these are coming straight from Aaron and IT. And so we work through them. So no, we're very comfortable with what's been presented to you. And, and if going through the year, as we know, we might have other issues that come up and we might come to the board with some modification. But right now, we're very comfortable with what's in the budget.
Things that you know that need to be in place to maintain
all the requests,
budget.
all requests that we show you what was asked for and what's approved. All the departments that have asked for these things are aware of what's been approved and they're comfortable.
Is that what you were talking about, the district court security then?
Scott said there's some money in the risk, what?
Risk control, and that was started under the Greenberg Powers days, I believe, starting to address some of the things that were being brought up, like Jeff Solka and others, and trying to look at different ways of enhancing security throughout the buildings and all that. So there's 30,000, just over 30,000 for the budget.
Any public comment? Anybody wants to comment on anything? Feel free to do so. I think there's a whole lot to argue about when you don't have extra money. So I guess when 75% of what we do, state says you're mandated to do it. We have an airport we have to take care of, and road patrol, and so there's not a lot of extra money for other programs. Minor things which we can address even as the year goes on, I guess, come up and we address them, but as far as the base budget, I think it's very well done, as has been all while Sue's been in charge, and Scott works along, and Debbie, and whatever, but, this is the last budget Sue we put together, and I guess I want to thank you dearly for it, because, you know, you had a lot of different people working on budgets here before you came, and they weren't nearly as well thought out and put together as the ones that you have, so I commend you for it. So I guess we can, when do we have to act on final
Well,
time?
if you're, you typically, you move to put it at your annual meeting, if you're accepting of it, which is October 15th.
We can send it to the 17th, and people, we can have a discussion on anything people want, make any amendments to it that you want to make, but I would recommend that we send it on to October 17th.
It's the 15th, Chairman, it's the 15th.
15th.
October 15th, and leave it open for commissioners to make amendments if they wish to do so, or whatever, on that day.
I'd make a motion to move that current budget as displayed forward to October 15th with comment.
Support.
Other comments? All in favor? Excuse me.
I'd like to, yeah. I'd like to thank Matt Weesey for his ongoing updates. I know Commissioner Adamini, as well as I, appreciate those ongoing updates, along with the jail updates that Scott Urbish has given us on a regular basis. It gives us a flavor as to what the specific needs are in the county, and with those updates, Matt, and your caseload also puts additional caseload on the courts and the court administrator's office, and we recognize that. And that's something we're going to have to continue to staff to keep the residents in Marquette County safe. Having said that, I'm not happy about the continued drain of the severance tax. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. That's an important reserve for when we have the catastrophic failure, and I don't like to see it mixed in to the ongoing budget, but I understand it, and that's all I have.
Any other comments? I guess, all I can say is the last 10 years, we've raised the reserves, how much, so? Percentage-wise?
In the last 5 years, if I didn't go back 10 years. In the last 5 years, we increased general fund reserves by 2.7 million, and of that we used 1.7 for the detention center, so.
That speaks to the financial responsibility of the board. Any other comments?
And what time period was that?
Last 5 years.
So we'll adjourn the meeting.
All in favor? You want to, we vote?
Technicality.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have, the capital projects is included in that motion? Or do we have to do it separately?
All the capital projects and fee increases, that's there.
Well done, Scott and Sue.